webinar is called Youth and 4-H Poultry. And today, the goal is to strengthening poultry knowledge, positive youth development, and poultry production through 4-H education. We're going to talk about disease prevention and just practical skills from backyard production and how to just some skills in the show ring success. So we're gonna do a brief introduction of all of us. I will start with me in the next presentation. And yeah, there you go. So my name is Yunan Bustamante. I'm the Oahu Livestock Extension Agent and 4-H Livestock Agent. And what we do is just promote education outreach to producers, stakeholders, anyone that's involved in livestock, including 4-H kids and their projects. So go ahead, Jasmine, introduce yourself briefly.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm an animal science student at UH Manoa, and I'm also UNIN's livestock extension intern.
Yeah, so Kaylee, please.
Hi, my name is Kaylee. I've been a member of Ohio 4-H for a little over 10 years now, and I was a delegate at the National 4-H Congress in 2025, and I'm excited to share about poultry with you guys.
Yeah. So before we start, we're gonna do a quick questions survey. So we're gonna share a link with you, or you guys can see it, the QR code in the screen. And we're just gonna like talk a little bit on how much we know about poultry. So there's very easy questions and what we think is poultry. So everybody that is available to just gonna like respond. Just careful the ones that we're driving, but feel free to respond. So far we have 4 responses. So, okay, there you go. So I think we got it all correct. So we're gonna go to the next question. Okay. And okay, just name one use of poultry in Hawaii. Just what are the uses of poultry in Hawaii? So there you go. That's a great question. Great question. Yeah. So all of them are very important. I think, is a number one known, the production of eggs here, right? So, okay. So 7 responded. We can go to the next one. Okay. So, okay, what part? The gizzard, the crop. Okay, and this is kind of one of the things that we're gonna learn today about what part of the poultry is when we store food and the anatomy part. Okay, so 7 responses, so we're doing pretty good. Yes. Okay, so we can pass to the next slide. And now the other question is, what part of the chicken helps to grind food? Like inside of the body is part of the digestive system. So we have all these options, and we have the first brave one, the gizzard. Okay, there you go. That's awesome. Thank you guys for all participating. Yeah, we're going through these questions super quick. We got like almost halfway there, and that should be pretty straightforward. So there you go. Awesome. Awesome, everybody. Yes. Yeah, and we're gonna save all that information and we can just talk about all these questions. Yeah. Okay. So, and what about the weight? Which I have lighter bodies or heavier bodies? That will make sense. And we're gonna explain why, the why for this. Okay. So just mention one, why is biosecurity in poultry important? Just why you guys think? Yeah, we like to do some prevention of diseases. Okay, yes, that's correct. Yeah, that's kind of the number one answer. Yeah, right. And just name one way that we can just practice biosecurity when we have in our 4-H poultry project. One way. How do you guys practice biosecurity? Okay, yeah, keeping records. That's good. Of who's coming in, who's coming out. That's a really good one. Great answer. Over here, so we got marvelous. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so I think, Jasmine, are we close to the questions? How many more we have?
Just a couple more. I think there might be
Okay,
three.
yeah. All right, so this one I think is what would be the phases of broiler production? And I know it's three different options. So two people answer simultaneously. Perfect. Yes. Okay, we got 3 answers and great, great. And okay, so what will be the name for, there you go. There you go. Perfect. Dual purpose. We have the layers, the broilers, and dual purpose. So we're gonna talk a little bit more in detail about this dual purpose compared to the other ones. And okay. And one thing that you would like to learn about poultry today. How to show. Yeah. So, Kaylee, we're gonna talk a little bit more about how to show and, tips and tricks and how to show at 4-H. So I think, Kaylee, keep that in mind. That's what we're thinking about. We're gonna talk about health. Yeah, Jasmine is gonna talk about the importance of health and our poultry and keeping happy and care. Okay. Well, thank you for participating, and we have all this recorded, and we're gonna talk about that. So I'm gonna start presenting, and then Jasmine, and then Kaylee. So I think one of the first thing is, why is poultry important in Hawaii? And we're gonna start with the definition. And poultry means all birds they're reared or kept in captivity for the production of any commercial animal products or for breeding for the purpose of animal products. And according to the USDA, poultry includes several species. And as we mentioned in the survey, and the question includes hens, includes turkeys, includes broilers, and also we have quails, we have ducks, and we have geese. So oftentimes we see chickens, but there's more than that. There's several species that's considered poultry, but then I have a tricky question here. Do you guys think, you can just type it in the chat, the animal that's in my left, the pueo or owl, is that considered poultry according to the definition that I just read? What are your thoughts on that? I guess the one that answered first, it gets a brownie point in the chat. Okay, no, that's correct. Yeah. It's not, because it's not considered there's an animal that's going to be kept in captivity for production by any, could be feathers, could be meat, or could be eggs. And it's not going to be breeding purposes for those products. So the correct answer is no. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide, please. And the next slide, we're going to talk about the uses of poultry. The most common ones that we know and we discuss it is the production of meat and production of eggs. And oftentimes we see laying hens and broilers. There's the meat birds called. But also there is a potential production in turkeys. When I was working in my previous job at Color Ranch, we raised around 100 turkeys for Thanksgiving, and that's what we had to do, raise them all, processing, and then have it ready for Thanksgiving. And it got sold out in a day. So that's another potential opportunity for production and also, for 4-H programming too. But then another super cool way to use this poultry in a different ways. I don't know if any of you knows about these runner ducks in South Africa, but these ducks, what they do is they let them out in the morning to these wineries, and what they do is just go and just peck at all the bugs, especially slugs, and all kinds of insects and pests that they can damage the crops. So in that way, instead of using insecticides to just lower the pressure of all these bugs, what they do is they ducks. So they raise ducks and they have grapes for wine. So this is a sustainable way to use this poultry for pest control. So we're gonna go to the next slide, please. So that's multiple uses of poultry, but this is one of the most common that we know. And then the other question is like, why is this so important to raise it? And the importance is also nutritional. So as we know, and now the new statistics, they say that 1 in 3 households in Hawaii are food insecure. But what does that mean, being food insecure? Which means that sometimes there is not a food or nutrients to sustain, and just, sometimes we skip breakfast, or, the food that we have available is not as nutritious as an egg or as a chicken. So I got the comparison. I know we love spam musubis, and every time that I go to 7-Eleven, I get one, and I look it up, and it has 6 grams of protein, right? Which is equal an egg. An egg has the amount of protein that spam musubi. The only difference with the egg kind of thrives is the egg doesn't have the high content of sodium as the spam musubi, right? And if we eat 3 ounces of chicken, what we're gonna have is almost like 3-4 times the amount of protein. And protein is crucial for developing our muscles, right? So it's very important that we consume healthy, nutrient-dense food, as I mentioned, chicken or meat, and also eggs. So we go to the next one, please. Yeah. So, and then another thing that's very important for us to always remember, we're in islands, when in a set of islands, for the one that are watching from other islands, and we're so isolated for so many different areas, and our land is so limited. So because of that, 80 and 90% of all food supplies, egg, chicken, all of that comes from outside of Hawaii. So we depend, and thank you for the other states. They're raising eggs and meat, and they ship it to us. But I think it would be crucial for us in the future, if the boat, you see this giant boat that has a lot of food in there. I think what happens when I was during COVID, I don't know if any of you guys remember going to the store, there's no more eggs. So it's kind of the same thing. If the boat doesn't come, we're gonna have no eggs or any kind of poultry products. So that's kind of the importance, to keep that in mind. If we can try to be as sustainable as possible, raise your own food, try to get your own hands. Besides the 4-H project, make it as a part of your daily life, raising your own food and just having always a source of nutrient dense food. So we're gonna go to the next one, please. Next slide. So I want to show you some data. I know that looks like a lot of numbers, but it was pretty easy and super cool information that I found that in the statistics from the USDA. So you're gonna see on the left side, we're gonna see where are the most number of laying hens per county. And guess what? Oahu, woohoo, first place. So we got almost 93% of all the laying hens in the state. And probably the ones that we live in Oahu, we kind of figure out why. We have a big, large commercial barns with laying hens. So in second place, we have the island of Hawaii. and they just have the 3%, and followed by Maui, and the yellow little tiny, I think, is Kauai. So we can see where are our flocks of laying hens and where the distribution of it and what's the importance of it to raise and have more poultry in other counties as well. So then on the right side, you're gonna see we're gonna go from top to bottom. And I look it up, and Hawaii population in 2025 is 1.4 million. So just in all islands, as we know, in Oahu is where we have the most population. And there's different data that it says what's the minimum hens per person that we need to have to be sustainable. And the minimum that is mentioned is 2 laying hens per person. So if we multiply the population times 2, so it gives a total the number of hens that were needed, there will be almost like close to 3 million hens. So that's a lot of feathers right there. But so then and we go down, and I look it up, in the latest hen inventory in 2022 is close to 300,000 laying hens. So if we take those numbers, how many more hens we need to be sustainable? We'll see who drops it in the chat first. Let's see who's really good at math. Any thoughts? It can be just round numbers. It doesn't have to be very specific. But how many more hens we need? And adults or everybody can type it in the chat. We tried to make it this very dynamic. I'm gonna give you guys some few minutes. If any thoughts, maybe Asia, Rajiv, anyone, Marielle, anyone to guess the
Hold
answer
on.
here?
Let me guess. So, can you repeat the questions again?
Yes. So we need a total of 2,800,000 hens to be sustainable, right?
Okay.
So far in 2022, we have close to 300,000 laying hens. How many more hens we need to be sustainable?
So we need 2.5 million around.
Yeah. 2,500,000 hens. So we need a lot more hens to be sustainable. So it's how
Imagine those hen is gonna attack us. We have to fight 2 hen per person.
Yeah, if we do two hen per person, we need that many hens. So this is just an exercise, the potential to be sustainable, how many hens that we could just have in Hawaii to be sustainable, right? Okay, so we go to the next one. So it's 2.5 million for the ones they didn't hear or they didn't guess, but thank you for participating. So this is another, it looks like a lot of numbers, but it should be pretty cool. So I look it up also, what is it, poultry production in Hawaii through time. And back in 2008 and 2009, 10, and all these first few years, you look at it on the left side, right? The left side, the egg production graph. So in that one, you see we're up and down, but they're around the 10,000 is the value of the production, $10,000, right? But then 2022 and 2023, there's a big spike of egg production. Does anyone has a thought why all of a sudden we have so double, almost for some compared to other years, almost triple? How about any thoughts over here? Theo?
Maybe the
Where
COVID lead to expensive eggs, and everybody wanted to have some cheap eggs, so they got some more birds.
that's a thought. How about you, Theo? What are your thoughts here?
Maybe I don't know.
Maybe more hands? Maybe? You
Probably.
think? Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the biggest reason is in Oahu, we have the largest farm. And yeah, they built more barns. And because they have way more barns, they just double and triple. And they bring large amounts of feed. They bring a whole staff, the whole team, and they were able to double and triple where they have the capacity for they have the space and they have the equipment and they have the people they need it for. So then we see on the right side, we see the broiler production, the meat birds, what it's called. And as you can see, compared to the laying hens, is very little. It's very little the sales through the year. It just only in 2018 it goes above 6,000. And if you guys see the turkey, there was some attempts in 2000 is the green bars 2028 and 2029 to try it a little bit. In 2018 there was another attempt, but it's no one in the state that's really wanted to start turkey production. So which it opens a lot of opportunities for producers or anyone that wants to start raising turkeys, right? So this is the statistics, this is the numbers, and it's all collected through time and through all the states. So we're gonna go to the next one, please. Yeah. So then just briefly, I'm gonna go to the different types of systems in Hawaii. We have the cage system. You know, we still have some farms. There's like high efficiency, and there's a traditional, the way it is being, and they control the environment, and they have feed and water all available all the time. Then we go next one to the cage-free systems. And that one is you can see inside of the barn, but the birds still freely roam around. Have you guys ever seen a free range or pasture raised system here?
No, not
Anyone?
really.
No?
I only
How about
seen
you? Yeah. How about you, Tolentino? Oh. So yeah, we have the pasture raised systems too. The animals just roam freely and they leave it outdoors. And the backyard, small scale, this, small area, this just cheaper infrastructure, and it's perfect for a small household, schools, and 4-H programs. So, what type of system do you guys have at home?
systems.
Yeah. Do you have the backyard or the small scale?
I have
How about you, Shanesty? What type you have?
The chickens.
Yeah. But
I keep them in pens.
okay, so
And
we'll
they
be
have
so we'll be considered like a backyard small scale, right? And okay, so this is all the different types that we have. So we're gonna go to the next one, please.
okay.
Okay, and we talk about wanting to learn about health. And one of the most important things about health, besides shelter, is food. So we need to make sure our birds have all the nutrients. And usually the number one nutrient that is very important to provide is water. So I have like super fun facts here. So a laying hen, and this, I know that we have a lot of poultry laying hen projects for 4-H this year. Do you guys knew that 25% of the water that she takes is in the last 2 hours of the daylight? So we gotta make sure in the afternoon, well, through the day, but especially in the evening, they have plenty fresh, clean water, right? And do you guys know that a tiny baby chick is 80% water? So most of the baby chick is just water. So it's super cool to just learn how much water is in those animals. And same as an egg, 75% of the egg, so almost, more than half of the egg is water. So water is very important, and always make sure to clean the water and just have it like fresh water. I'll bet all of you guys are doing it, but it's just a reminder the importance of water. And when we buy feed, all the feed has all the nutrients that are required. The one that's for laying hens, which is protein, carbohydrates or starch, there is corn, and it has some fats, minerals, and vitamins. How many of you give some calcium or oyster shell to their laying hens? You guys
House?
can raise your hand. You guys give oyster shells or calcium? Yes? No? Maybe? Okay. So we'll go to the next one, please. Okay, and this is just a quick fun fact before we switch to Jasmine. And do you guys know why there's so many chickens? There's a lot of chickens in Kauai. Do you guys know what is the island that has the most chickens? Any thoughts?
Because there's more hens.
Yes, it's because there's more hens. And there are more hens because in 1980s and the 1990s there were two tropical storms like the ones that they just passes, the Konalo storms, two storms that destroy all the chicken coops in Kauai. And the island, and it was released a lot of chickens. So they all got loose after the storms. So then they became wild. So then since then, Kauai is known for having the largest amount of chickens. And also they don't have mongoose, like here in Oahu, the mongoose comes and steal our eggs. So that does not happen in Kauai. So that's why the eggs hatch and there's more chicks. Okay, so I'll hand it to Jasmine now.
Okay, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about the external anatomy. We have the comb and the wattles, and those help regulate body temperature and indicate overall health of your chicken. The feathers provide insulation and protection, and the beak, wings, and feet are really important for feeding, movement, and survival. Then here's a little bit of info about the digestive system. So we're looking at the internal anatomy now. You guys did a really great job figuring out what the crop and the gizzard are for. The crop is the part that stores the food, and then we have the proventriculus, which is the glandular stomach. So that chemically breaks down the food before it enters the gizzard, which mechanically breaks down the food. And then here for the reproductive system, hens typically have only one functional ovary and oviduct. The eggs form as yolks and are released from the ovary and travel through the oviduct, where they become the egg and the shells are formed. And this process altogether normally takes around 24 to 26 hours for one egg to be produced. And now we're going to look a little bit more about what layers are and what broilers are. So you guys already know that layers are raised for egg production and broilers are raised for meat production. You also did a really great job on this question on our pre-quiz, where the layers have a lighter body and the broilers have a bulkier body because they're raised for meat. The layers also consume less feed while the broilers consume more, and the layers have a slower growth rate and the broilers grow a lot faster because we're just trying to make them like raised up to be meat. And now we're going to talk about a little bit of some common diseases in poultry. First off, we have Marek's disease, and we also have avian influenza and parasitic infections like mites or worms. Signs of illness can include lethargy, reduced appetite, weight loss, and abnormal posture. Early detection is really important in protecting your guys' birds. And that brings us to vaccination and deworming. Vaccination helps protect birds against serious diseases like Marek's disease and can significantly reduce mortality. Deworming is also important to control internal parasites. Regular health management practices support strong immunity and overall bird health. And then that brings us to biosecurity. which is essential for preventing diseases and the spread and introduction of those diseases. Key practices include disinfecting our equipment, limiting visitor access, and isolating birds when they're sick, just to not spread any disease they may have. Okay, and that brings us to our next fun fact. Hawaii is home to many heritage breeds like the moa, which is a descendant of the ancient Polynesian chickens brought over by voyagers over 1,000 years ago. And that brings us to Kaylee's portion.
All right, thank you, Jasmine. So before I get to all the fun pictures on this slide, I'll just tell you guys a little bit about the Ohio 4-H program. So our land-grant university is the Ohio State University, which is in Columbus. So that's our state capital. They do all of our 4-H extension programs for us. In Ohio, we have just over 60,000 youth members, and in my county alone, we have about 800 youth members from Cloverbud to age 18. And in my county, about 150 of those 800 kids take poultry projects. So I wanted to start off by just kind of showing you just a few of the different poultry projects that we show in Ohio 4-H. So for chickens, we show pullets, which are your laying hens that are under a year old. Typically, by the time we have our county fair, they haven't started laying their eggs yet. We have fancy birds. So in the top corner of your screen, those black and white birds that look like they have huge afros, those are an example of our fancy birds. They're mainly raised for exhibition. And then we have broilers, which we'll get into depth later on. We have waterfowl categories, so that includes ducks and geese. Then we show them for exhibition as well as market purposes to sell at auction. Then we have market turkeys, which the guy in the middle, that's how we show our market turkeys. We have a professional poultry judge come and judge the live carcass of the birds. And also we have a fancy turkey show as well. So that very beautiful Tom in the top corner, he's one of mine that I have at home. And we also have a helmeted guinea fowl category, except nobody really shows those in my county. So like I said, all of these pictures on the slide are from my county fair over the years. We do have a wide variety of birds and purposes for them, but my county fair is primarily a market show. So it's kind of full of like those big, ugly white birds. There's not a whole lot of pretty ones there. And in my county, youth are able to take up to 3 poultry projects, and most of the kids, they just take 1 market turkey and then 2 market broilers for their project. It's mandatory for the youth to participate in breed judging and the market sale if they have market birds. Then we have an optional showmanship class as well as a fun costume class on the last day of the fair. Next slide, please. So you guys can see the pie chart in the middle. That was from the USDA website. Ohio, we produce 11.4% of the eggs nationwide. So that puts us as the second largest egg production state in the US. We produce well over 10 billion eggs every single year, which I didn't even know that until I started researching it. We rank 9th nationally for turkey production by producing over 30 million pounds every year. And for broilers, so the meat chickens, we rank 17th in the nation, and we produce over 570 million pounds. And backyard poultry is becoming super popular among people in Ohio as well. And as a leader in the laying hen industry, Ohio is home to about 30 million laying hens. Then just on this slide, I just have a couple of pictures of common laying hen breeds. So you have the black Australorp, the buff Orpington, the Isa Brown, and white Leghorns. So usually these high efficient breeds lay anywhere between 250 to 300 plus eggs every single year. And a lot of the breeds, they're kind of crossbred chickens, and they're bred to maximize egg production. And then when you're considering getting laying hens of your own, there's a few different things you want to think about. Just kind of thinking about how often you want them to lay eggs and how many you want them to produce. Shell color and size. So we have white eggs, brown eggs. We have dark green eggs, light green, light blue. It's kind of like Easter eggs every time you go collect them. So that's a lot of fun. Thankfully, a lot of the laying hens, they do have a very nice temperament. So they're super friendly. They're good with kids, things like that. Also, you want to have birds that you like seeing outside. So if there's a pattern you really like, it's good that you get those birds. Then you just need to think about their purpose, if they're dual purpose or not, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and also their temperature durability. Next slide, please. So moving on to our broiler category, like we learned earlier, broilers are chickens that are bred and raised specifically for meat only. They have the genetics to go from the little tiny day-old chicks all the way to full-grown market weight within 7 to 8 weeks, which is absolutely crazy to think about. The growth rate does depend on the breed. So the most common breed, which you can see in the picture on the screen, is the Cornish cross. There's a whole bunch of different genetic lines. There are whole people that dedicate their careers to enhancing the genetics of these birds. On the screen, that's actually a flock that I had, I believe, 2 summers ago. In the picture, you can see that they all just kind of lay around and they just eat and drink water all day, and that's about it. So just to go over their growth a little bit, when the birds are 0 to 2 weeks old, this is called their starter phase. The goal is to feed them a high protein diet. So at home, we feed them a 30% game bird feed. It just kind of gives them a head start over people who are just feeding like a start to finish feed. And I think they finish out better anyways when they start on higher protein. From 3 to 4 weeks of age, they're in the grower phase, and the goal is to produce as much muscle as possible. Usually they're on the 22% protein diet at this point. And then the last 4 weeks is the finisher phase, and this is when weight gain is crucial. It's kind of sort of really crazy because in the first couple weeks of their life, they can quite literally almost double their body weight, within a couple of days. Then, unlike turkeys, broilers are not super active. So, to increase activity and to improve their leg strength and health, it's super important that you guys separate the feeders and the waterers because it forces them to get up and move a little bit instead of just laying down. Then, also, if broilers have their life extended past 8 weeks of age, the quality of their meat slowly becomes diminished, and eventually it's just not good quality anymore. All right, next slide, please. So this slide is all about some challenges we face in the broiler industry with their intense rate of growth. So to start out for skeletal, the main thing is leg issues. On the screen, we have a picture of a chicken with bowed legs. Then just because of how fast they grow, their legs don't always keep up with them, and it causes like deformities and severe lameness and things like that. Then another big thing in the industry is tibial dyschondroplasia. So essentially that just means the cartilage in their tibias, it doesn't actually form to bone, and it kind of just gets all mush, and that's kind of when the leg issues start to begin. Broken legs due to their intense weight. They can have femoral head necrosis due to infection in their joint spaces, and they can also get a disease called rickets, which is brittle bones. As for muscular issues, you can see on the screen, there's a picture of a chicken breast. And if you guys look at it super close, you know it doesn't look normal. So the wooden breast on the screen, if you were to actually touch that piece of meat, it would actually feel firm to the touch. And that's due to issues with the muscle fibers because of the growth. And their bodies just kind of stop working as a system altogether. You can have white striping of the meat, something called spaghetti meat, where the muscle fibers actually separate from each other. Then they can get something called green muscle disease if they flap their wings too much and have their wings swell up. As for our cardiovascular growth challenges, they can have something called ascites, which is pulmonary hypertension. It causes heart failure, and essentially they get a whole bunch of fluid in their abdomen, and then they eventually pass away from that. They can have just general heart failure, abnormal heart rhythms, and something called sudden death syndrome, where a seemingly healthy bird quite literally just flips over on its back and ends up dying that way. They often have trouble breathing just because of how heavy they are, especially in weeks 7 and 8. And then they have, for reproductive, significantly decreased fertility rates, male infertility issues, and females have a reduced laying rate. All right, next slide, please. So now we can talk a little bit about broilers versus our dual purpose birds. So we know that broilers are raised only for meat, and they grow super, super fast within that 7 to 8 week range. They do require constant feeding. They don't honestly, they don't want to be outside eating bugs like all the other cool backyard chickens. They just want to eat their high protein diet, get around and drink water every once in a while. And they are super sensitive to temperature. So last summer here in Ohio, we had some days that were like 95 and 100 degrees. So our birds weren't used to that. So it was super important that we kept fans on them to keep the birds cool, to keep heat stress instances from happening. So dual purpose birds, they grow at a much slower rate than broilers, and they can either be used for egg production or meat. They don't require constant grain. So these birds, they do like being outside and eating the bugs as well as some grain to supplement their diet. And then they are much more hardy. So a lot of my birds, they are dual purpose. We keep them for eggs. We only eat the broilers, but they're good in the temperatures in the winter that we have when it gets below zero, as well as when it gets crazy hot in the summer for us. Then just some general info about the dual purpose birds is they lay between 200 to 300 eggs per year. They are ideal for homesteads or backyard flocks. Some of the common breeds, they're going to be your like heftier hens. They're usually pretty big. So you can have Plymouth Rocks, Orpingtons, Rhode Island Red, Wyandottes, Buckeyes, Jersey Giants. And like I said, they're usually larger breeds and the hens are really sweet usually. All right, next slide. Okay, so I know we had a lot of people wanting to learn about showmanship. So thankfully, that's probably going to be my favorite part of this presentation. So showmanship, you are completely judged as the handler of the bird, and it's not your chicken being judged, it's you and how you handle your bird and what you know about it. So when preparing for showmanship, you should look nice, neat, and clean. You need your hair to look neat and tied back in a ponytail if it's long. You shouldn't have any nail polish on, no dangling jewelry, so necklaces, bracelets, hoop earrings, anything like that. You want to wear dark jeans without holes in them, closed-toed shoes, usually boots though. And then we all wear white lab coats or a white button-down shirt. And then when you're showing, first impressions are everything, whether it's showing your birds or going for a job interview. So it's super important that you guys always shake your judges' hands before and after your showmanship interview. Doesn't matter how you think it went. It's super important to be respectful of their time. You can give them an introduction. So I had one that I always used when I showed. So for example, it'd say, "Hi, my name is Keely Williams. I've been in 4-H for 10 years, and this is my Polish hen named Penny." So all I did was I said who I was, how long I had been showing for, what chicken I had with me, and then I always threw their name in there because that was fun. Always have confidence and show up with a smile, be happy to be there. And as always, the best way to find success is to practice. So with showmanship, I find it's kind of different with every single judge you have. They have a different judging style. But as you get older in the program, a lot of judges will literally say, "Tell me everything you know about your bird." So rather than kind of going off on a whole bunch of different tangents, I feel like it's good to have a plan. So a couple things you could talk about, I have all of those little bubbles on the screen, about your breed information of your birds, so where they originated, the class they're in, the color they are, their age, anything like that. That chickens are incubated for 21 days. And it's also important to know incubation periods of other poultry, so geese, turkeys, ducks, quail, anything like that. Just the external anatomy of the bird. So I always focused on the parts of the head, the wings, the legs, and just major parts of the whole body. Some nutrition, so what your bird is currently eating, the protein percentage, and just their nutritional needs. Some common diseases in the poultry world. So we talked about Marek's disease a little bit already, and then HPAI, so that's the bird flu. You can talk about biosecurity, so kind of how you want to keep those diseases out of your flock and how you would handle sick birds and visiting other farms and things like that. And then I was always asked questions about internal and external parasites. It was usually like name one of each for your bird. So I would usually say a type of worm for the internal parasites, and then for the external parasites, you have lice and mites. Then just some random tips and facts I think you guys might benefit from about showmanship is the most important nutrient for any living thing is water. A lot of people will say, "Oh, it's soybeans, it's grain." Nope, it's water no matter what. If the judge during your interview asks to hold your bird, you always want to give it to them head first. So it's just kind of a safety thing for the bird and ease for the handler. So in the picture, you can see that's actually my brother and I. He's showing a duck. I'm showing one of my roosters in that picture. If I were to hand my bird to the judge, I quite literally want to like shove my bird towards the judge with its head being in the front. Then same thing when the judge hands it to you. Everything with the bird goes head first. So whether that's handing it off from person to person or taking it in and out of a cage, head first for everything. If you guys have cages at your show, make sure you close them behind you. The judges do watch for that, and you could get marked off points for something as silly as not shutting your cage door. We talked about turkey and duck incubation periods. Then there are some duck breeds that don't follow the 28-day rule. So the Muscovy duck, they incubate closer to 30 to 33 days. So it's important to know just the little random tidbits like that. And if the judge asks you a question and you don't know the answer, that's completely okay. They know 4-H is about learning. So just kind of keep your composure and then the judge will walk you through it. Next slide, please. Okay, then we can get into some general judging and show tips. So your birds are typically, aside from showmanship, they're graded based on the standard of perfection produced by the American Poultry Association. So I have a picture of the SOP book on the screen. The APA does have that for sale, and they do have resources online as well. So breed judging for your birds is based solely on the presentation of your birds and how well they actually fit to the standard. The showman still needs to look presentable. You kind of want to look the same for showmanship. You can prepare your bird to succeed in breed judging. You might need to give them a bath. So you can see the bird in the top corner. That was one of my broilers. About a day or two before the show, broilers have a tendency to get dirty when you don't want them to be dirty. So my mom and I, we always give our birds a bath a couple days before. We just use warm water and Dawn dish soap. Then you just like gently scrub, and the bird's probably going to get mad and flap its wings. So to reduce instances of having them break their wings, we always like lined a little baby pool with pool noodles just so they have less of a chance of actually hurting themselves or bruising their meat. And then after we actually washed the birds, we always dried them off with a towel and then used a hair dryer on a low setting, as you can see in that picture on the bottom of the screen, until they're fully dry. And then you want to put them back in a clean and dry area, preferably away from other birds because they will fight sometimes. Then also to prepare for show, you can trim their toenails, put a little bit of Vaseline on their comb and wattles to give them more of like a shiny and presentable appearance. Then just general rule is to make sure your birds are disease and parasite free. So the picture with the guy holding one of my Polish hens, he's actually judging her based on something in the standard. So that big puff of white on her head, that's called a crest. So for the Polish breed, the judge needs to measure the crest of their head and how big it is and how much black there is and things like that. All right, next slide, please. And then finally, I just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about the research I've been doing with poultry and my eventual goals. So when I was a senior in high school, I did a capstone project and I focused on broiler skeletal structure and deformities in broilers. So in the middle of the screen, that was actually one of my broiler hens. I reconstructed her skeleton for my final project. Her name is Skelly, and she's been to a lot of different presentations with me. Everyone seems to think she's really cool, so that's awesome. Right now, I'm minoring in research at Lake Erie College. I'm doing a literature review about current Marek's disease preventative vaccine measures and how we can potentially improve those in the future. My eventual goal is to become a poultry food supply veterinarian. So I want to expose myself to the more so research side of things while I'm still an undergrad student. And then I'll just touch on the National 4-H Congress a little bit. Any youth that's on this Zoom call, if you guys have the opportunity to go to Congress, I absolutely 110% recommend it. It's around Thanksgiving time each year. So it's super fun. You get to go there for about a week. It's in Atlanta, Georgia. And then I had the opportunity to actually go as a delegate with my state in 2024 and just kind of see what Congress was all about. And then I applied for a position to be part of the 2025 youth design team, and I was selected to help plan the Congress that year. So again, Congress is super fun. You meet a lot of cool people, and that's actually how we got to do the school poultry webinars, because of networking at Congress.
I got a question.
Yeah.
Is Skelly a chicken?
Yeah, Skelly is a chicken.
Oh, this is really look like a chicken.
Yeah, they look pretty different when there's not all the meat, but it's the same general thing, just a lot skinnier.
Oh, but and a lot bigger.
All right, then that was my last slide.
Yeah, I think Kelly now that it's like just in the bones, it looks a little bit like a tiny dinosaur. It kind of reminds us where all the chickens come into, the T-Rex, right? So, mahalo everyone for attending today. I don't know if you guys have any questions to any of us or Kaylee specifically about anything else that you guys wanted to expand in showmanship and things like that, or how are we feeling? Do we have any other questions? Well, I appreciate you guys' time, and I hope this session was educational. You guys learned something new, and you guys can always reach out at any point if you need any help with your project, or if anyone wants to learn more, or if you guys interested in going in Congress, we can just work through our years in 4-H and try to develop a good portfolio for that so we can help you with all of you guys, all of that. Okay? All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, and I hope you have a good evening. Thank you.